Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Eric Trexler, the Senior Vice President for U.S. Public Sector at Palo Alto Networks. Eric, great to have you on.
Justin, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And so we're going to have a really wide-ranging conversation about cybersecurity here today. And I think the perfect place to start is talking about cyber threats. Top of mind is ransomware. It seems to be here to stay. We had the Move It one over the summer. What are the latest trends we're seeing there?
We've had a lot of famous ones.
Yeah, it's part of the national conversation now almost.
It is.
Are we seeing any new trends emerge when it comes to ransomware though?
I think we're seeing the adversary get more intelligent, more capable. We're seeing it's a $30 billion business at this point. We're seeing the average payout on ransomware when a company actually pays it out growing to north of $5 million per firm.
Wow.
Right? So the costs are escalating. The impact to America is escalating. I run both the Fed and the state local education business. Ransomware really isn't a federal problem. I mean, if you hit a pipeline, which I think for the bad actors, the adversaries, big mistake, right? Because the president of the United States starts talking about you and ransomware. And what we saw was DarkSide, the ransomware group, went away. But the majority of them, there's very little risk and there's a ton of incentive. So I expect the problem to continue to grow. And it's impacting hometown America, our school systems, our hospitals, our towns, right? And it's expensive. And they're not equipped both in personnel and funding to deal with it effectively today.
And even if, federal systems are perhaps off limits for some of these groups to actually ransom them, I think we've still seen the Move It breach affect those systems. And then, as you mentioned, it extends to critical infrastructure that the government's concerned about, healthcare systems and things like that. So this is something that the federal government has probably got to be pretty concerned about going forward, regardless of whether, their specific data is being ransomed. And so let's talk about what different levels of government can do to kind of support the IT modernization investments that we know support better cybersecurity going forward against just competing mission priorities, everyday costs and things like that. How do you think, CIOs, whether it's your federal CIO, state CIO, local government CIO, how do they approach that challenge?
So first, I think they need to understand the problem, right? Understand risk to the organization, understand what they're trying to do. You can't be perfect everywhere. Understand your high value assets, understand the problem. I believe that wargaming or doing tabletop exercises, drilling, understanding what you're going to do when an event happens is critically important. And then working with your teams to understand the business outcomes you want. Too often we're in conversations where we're working with the cybersecurity teams and they can't articulate why they're trying to do something or they want to buy a product. It's not about products. It's about protecting the organization, the agency, town hall, the hospital, whatever it may be. Go to industry. Give us the hard problems and let us solve them. We do it every day.
Do you see CIOs generally understanding that perspective? Does it vary across federal versus state, or how do they understand that paradigm?
So it absolutely varies, and the higher up you go in the organization, the more they understand the need to address some of the business outcomes, right? But when you get to the practitioners, oftentimes they're siloed, their budgets are siloed. They have existing legacy equipment or software that they need to integrate in, and that's what they do. So really taking a step back, looking at consolidation and modernization. One of the biggest challenges we see in the industry, depending on the study you look at, the average organization is somewhere north of 30 cybersecurity tools or vendors they're working with. Some well in excess of 100. That's chaos to an organization that's trying to solve a business problem.
And so that leads us well into questions about zero trust. I mean, it seems to be kind of the North Star. It is the North Star for a lot of federal agencies under the federal zero trust strategy. And I think we're seeing organizations across the board embrace the concepts and the architecture. Where do you think we are in this zero trust push conversation, and where is it going?
Well, we're about 13 years in, if that helps.
Sure.
Right, in an industry that isn't that old. The first thing we work with is trying to understand what the customer is trying to do, what they mean by zero trust. We've got to baseline it, and we're getting a lot better at that. The businesses, the agencies we deal with are a lot more mature in that area than they were 3, 4, 5 years ago, right? But again, getting down to high value assets, getting down to what we're trying to do. If you think about zero trust in the context of physical security, right, you've got to protect the entire organization. Physical security, think about a house, right? If you don't lock the windows, but you've got incredible security on the doors, that's great, but the adversary may just crawl through the window. So you have to have an agency-wide or organization-wide strategy where everybody is aligned. It's so critically important. And you need to look at things like conditional access, condition-based access, right? So how do you authenticate users? Imagine the door concept again. You knock on my door, I open it. Who are you? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? I inspect your credentials. I look at maybe a logbook and say, okay, Justin, you have access to that one room. Please wait off the side in the living room. We'll be right with you, right? We need the same concept in the zero trust world. Sometimes that gets lost because it becomes a checklist activity. I'm going to apply these 45 or 91 controls. And once I check that off in my segment of the business, that's okay. But if the other segments of the business aren't on board, or they're not there yet, or they're operating against a different set of parameters, we still have some business challenges.
Got it. And so is that the longest pole in the tent for zero trust? Is it the culture and around these other business challenges, or where do you see maybe federal agencies struggling the most when it comes to actually adopting zero trust?
I really think it's not a product problem.
Yeah.
It's what do you want to accomplish? What are the business outcomes you're looking for? Understanding those and then applying technology and capability. And you need to do it in the construct of modernization and consolidation and understanding where you are. It's a journey, right? It is not a checklist. Too often I see people who ask us to zero trust a part of their business. I don't even know where to start with that. So we have to do a lot of discovery to understand, what do you mean? What are you trying to protect? How are you trying to protect it? Why are you trying to protect it? And then we can bring technology to bear.
Interesting. It seems like there's some zero trust and cybersecurity literacy that's still very much needed across businesses and other organizations.
We're still learning. There's a massive workforce challenge, right? There aren't enough people in the industry. So we're still learning, and as we bring new people into the industry, it's getting back to business still, though. It's not a technology problem per se, right? So we have to tie it back to the business. Cybersecurity exists to protect the business from adversarial activity from the outside. Let's get back to that.
And that leads really well into questions about, why someone should pursue a career in cybersecurity. As someone who works for a very large cybersecurity company, what's your pitch to someone looking at this field?
So I think if you're creative, if you're an artist, a musician, we have jobs for you. If you're technical, there are jobs in the industry. In America, there are over 700 unfilled cybersecurity jobs. We're not going to fill them. There are over 3,000 across the globe, according to ISC squared. So there are plenty of jobs. Find something that is interesting to you. They pay well. Great hours. Many times you can work from home. You get to work with great customers. In my business, the public sector space, you get to protect America. You get to protect your hometowns, your hospital systems, your schools, the education facilities. It's a very rewarding job also, which is why we see so many government officials, and the contractors we work with. What we're doing is really good work. It's creative, there's a lot of options, and it pays well.
Yeah, there's no doubt that it's meaningful work and that it mostly pays well, maybe a little less in the federal government than in the private sector, but even there, we're seeing some gains. In terms of whether this is going to be something, a longer term kind of STEM education issue, or whether we could, have people who are in different fields reskill, even folks who maybe don't have a college degree. What's your perspective on just raising the talent level across the board?
Well, I think we need to do all of that, right? But there's more we can do. Get into the industry. If you're an artist, a musician, as I said, I don't care what your career is. Find a way in and grow. There's so much opportunity, you will be okay. Take a risk. There's a lot there. But we do need to invest in STEM programs. At Palo Alto Networks, we're doing that with early stage career personnel. We're doing it with with kids in high school, middle school, as early as the elementary school period. There are a ton of programs that we're investing in, as are others in the industry. Find your way in, take a risk, and give it a shot.
Sure. And then on the flip side, what advice would you give to managers, whether they're someone at a federal agency, federal contractor, what have you, who are looking to recruit and retain a top-notch cyber workforce?
Again, I wouldn't limit creativity, and I wouldn't limit your options. Don't look for somebody with 20 years of cybersecurity experience. Look at the way people think and work through problems. There are a multitude of problems in the industry that aren't technical at all, right? The creativity that I've seen brought into the industry from people who don't have an IT or a comp sci degree is incredible. So many times their minds are more open to the art of the possible. That's where innovation comes from. So there's an endless amount of opportunity. Jump in.
How do you measure the ability of someone who's creative? How do you measure whether those skills can translate to the cybersecurity world? How do you assess that?
So I think you want to look at things like characteristics. How well do they team with others? Tell me about things you've done over your career where you were creative. You had a problem and you needed to find a creative way to address it. Adaptability, humility, curiosity is probably the biggest one in any level within cybersecurity. Are you curious about what's happening there? And how do you think about that problem set? How would you fix it? We have enough technical talent and we have enough tools, right? So really looking at how do you understand a problem set and then address it.
Got it. And in terms of, measuring the ability or the deficit of cyber talent, it's interesting. I used to cover the Defense Department, and they could measure how many ships the Navy had and where they could go throughout the world. How do you measure whether you have the cyber workforce that you need and what you're losing out on if you don't?
Well, we don't. So there are measures out there, but all of the measurements I've seen, we don't have enough humans. Right? Which is why you're seeing the industry spend a lot of time and effort on artificial intelligence and automation. We've got over 150 people working strictly on artificial intelligence within Palo Alto Networks. Wow. It's probably one of the biggest AI workforces out there, and it's growing massively. So we have other tools we need to bring because there just aren't enough people out there, which is why the jobs are available and people should look into them.
Sure. Well, there's a lot of discussion around AI today, and in the cybersecurity world, the question seems to be whether AI will help cyber defenders or bad actors more.
Yeah, friend or foe, right?
Yeah. What's your view on that?
I think it's like any technology out there. Take something like fire. You can heat your home with it or you can burn yourself. AI can be used for good or bad activity. Adversarial activity with AI is speeding up. It's getting creative. Think about deep fakes. Think about someone who doesn't speak English very well, who can use an AI tool to write a phishing email that you and I might actually click on, right? So the adversary is using it very heavily to attack us and creating a faster time to penetrate the targets, right? On the positive side, on the good side, we're using it in our technology, our tools with our customers to lower mean time to detection and mean time to remediation, right? How do we respond and then fix that? We don't have enough humans. Humans can't get to all the alerts that are out there. So we have to look at machine-based ways to get the really hard problems to the humans, but just machine handle everything else because the adversarial activity is speeding up, significantly.
You have so many folks working on AI today at Palo Alto, generally lowering that mean time to detection and remediation. What is the capability of AI today to actually do that? Where do you hope it will go or think it will go in the future?
So within our own SOC, we took our staff from 40 to 10 people. The majority of the work the 10 people are doing is writing playbooks and writing automation schemes and understanding how we move faster. We've taken the mean time to detect down into the minutes. Used to be days, hours. Right? As an industry, we're doing that for our customers everywhere. And then remediation is not much further behind that. Because when machines can understand what's happening and then make automated playbook-based decisions to take an action, that's before the pager or the phone even goes off for the human to recognize it. And nobody wants to look at a screen where you just have You have message after message coming in, alert after alert. Which one do you focus on? If there are 20 that really matter, what do? You can do one at a time as a human. A machine can do 20.
Yeah, I got to imagine looking through all those logs for anomalies and things like that. That's probably where you want to put AI going forward, even if it's not necessarily a known exploit or something like that.
And it's a tough job. We see a lot of turnover in the industry when you're doing that. So what you want to do is really take the level of the human up to where they're using their mind, their creativity, their curiosity to think about what they're doing, and let the machines handle all the basic work that you can automate.
Has that been a pretty seamless transition for your analysts, your human operators to team with the machines so far?
So our analysts love it. Our customers who are using the technologies love it because they're able to work on higher order activities. It's much more rewarding from a job perspective.
And in terms of how federal agencies are exploring these questions as it relates to AI, we know there's some research, a lot of research going on at places like DARPA. Mm-hmm. We know federal agencies generally are interested in how they can apply AI across their different missions. Are you seeing the demand signal in the cybersecurity world kind of, in terms of using AI across federal systems to help do some of these things?
So I think we're still early on.
Okay.
The research is still underway. People are figuring out how to use it in an ethical way, how to apply it to the business. What you're seeing is we've been using machine learning and some levels of artificial intelligence for years. Right? We didn't just hire 150 AI experts yesterday. So we're actually infusing it into our products. We believe we're well ahead of the industry, but the industry is coming along also to bring that technology to our customers. So even if you're a federal agency or you're a school district, you can take advantage of artificial intelligence by buying capabilities that exist today from industry.
Are there any thorny ethical questions just around the use of AI for cybersecurity specifically? We can probably come up with a million for AI generally, but for cybersecurity specifically, is that something that you all have come across?
Well, you want to look at efficacy rates, you want to look at what you're doing. So there absolutely are. I won't go into a lot of detail. I'm not a lawyer and looking at it, but anytime you publish any information to the web, let's say you're using something like ChatGPT to figure out how you should better protect your organization, that's potentially accessible to adversarial traffic also. So you want to be very conscious of that. A lot of the work we're doing is within the Palo Alto Networks domain. So it's protected information. The tools are using it to automate things that before a human would have to set up, or if you wanted to make a configuration change. We're doing a lot around natural language query. So you don't have to know how to code, you just have to know what you want to do, and then you can speak or type to the system, and we have capabilities that can rapidly make changes in your environment or help respond with information that you desire as a SOC analyst, let's say.
And while machine learning has been around for quite some time, perhaps that's where these large language models have really made a big difference, is in some of this natural language processing?
Sure, a lot of it going back, but the technology has gotten so much more advanced. The creativity, how we're using it in the business, in the technologies, it has really advanced in the last couple of years.
All right. Well, I want to focus on, as we wrap this up, what you think an often undervalued area of focus is for agencies when it comes to cybersecurity. What are we missing out on in this conversation?
Yeah, I spoke to it a little bit earlier. The government agencies that we deal with have a lot of legacy capabilities. They've been in business a long time. They're still working on the move to the cloud, digital transformation, and we're not sunsetting legacy capabilities quickly enough. So if you're a security professional in the government, you have a lot of baggage that you're bringing with you. Modernization and through that process, consolidation is key. The faster you can consolidate the number of tools you have, what you're trying to do in a more modern environment, the better off you're going to be, the better protected you'll be. And the easier it is to work with. And back to the workforce question, right? The more attractive you'll be to cybersecurity professionals.
Okay, well, again, I'd like to thank my guest today, Eric Trexler, the Senior Vice President for U.S. Public Sector at Palo Alto Networks. Eric, thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm your moderator, Justin Doubleday, and you're watching Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Palo Alto Networks.